The Gold Cup semifinals are tonight. Are the New York Cosmos coming back again? And who is your club's worst ever signing? That and more on Wednesday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's most definite favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Robert Kerr, American soccer commenter, and he is Jason Davis, radio man extraordinaire. How you doing here, sir, on a holiday Wednesday?
Yeah, shout out to everybody who's with us here a couple days away from Independence Day. We will acknowledge the, I guess it would be the 249th Independence Day. I don't know. I remember I don't know if they were doing it in like 1777. Like, yay, it's the first Independence Day. But here we are. I want to shout out St. Louis, Missouri. I'm wearing my St. Louis Football Club jersey, which obviously this team no longer exists. They have a new MLS team. I don't have any jerseys for them. And I like lower division stuff anyway, because that's where the U.S. men's national team is playing their game against Guatemala in the Gold Cup semifinal this evening, Rob. So shout out to St. Louis.
Thank you for shouting out St. Louis. I saw Energizer Park. Had no idea, but good to know that is St. Louis, Missouri. And always looking good, sir. Looking good in your kit as always. If you are watching this and you haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now. What you waiting for? It doesn't cost you a darn thing. $3.99 is the next level. That becomes a membership at that point. You become an MK Ultra. And I got to give a shout out to the MK Ultras in the MK Ultra. What is it called? The Discord chat. Yeah, the other one, Discord chat, has been very robust. Had some awesome conversations rolling. Lots of great stuff from local conversations to MLS to national team conversation. Shout out to the Discord. It is really getting good and some really robust American soccer conversations. If you want to support us in another way, coffee.com/morningkickaround. We have a goal of $3,000 for travel expenses to unite I think we were called on that Discord our robust duo, or not robust, our dynamic duo, something like that. They got us a nickname for the two of us.
I don't know what robust duo would mean.
I'm saying that word too many times. That wasn't the intrepid is the word I was looking for.
Coffee robust? Isn't that a word for coffee? It's robust, this coffee. That's what you drink coffee in the morning. I do not. So I don't know how robust your coffee. Maybe your coffee's robust.
Yeah. Well, we won't go down that road. My mind went to a bad place there for a sec. But we'll move right along so you can support. You can just click subscribe. You can, take it up a notch and become a member. You can support on Ko-Fi. You can follow along on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. A little easier to have more fleshed out thoughts. Write an email rather than a YouTube comment, even though we've been getting some good YouTube comments too. And all part of becoming a subscriber and a member. Priority commenting on the screen, early access to videos, bonus video content, and much more. So support the show there. You ready to get into some segments here, Mr. Davis?
No, let's do this. Let's hit the news.
All right, let's kick the long balls here on Wednesday's Morning Kickaround. Long ball number one here on Morning Kickaround for Wednesday, July 2nd, the first show here in July 2025. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Tonight, the Gold Cup semifinal. USA takes on Guatemala. Guatemala, big game for them. Haven't been to this stage of the competition since, I think, the 90s. This USA version of this team growing in stature, perhaps, after a gritty quarterfinal PK win. What are your thoughts heading into this game? I want to ask what you think about this team in general at this stage, but what do you think about the game, first of all?
Yeah, Guatemala hasn't been in a semifinal since New Metal was a thing. That's how long ago that was. Obviously a big deal for Guatemala. The United States is supposed to win this game, and that brings a certain level of potential letdown or not meeting the moment. I do think there's that. But I think that there was something shown in that Costa Rica victory, Rob, that this team knows how to fight for this, that they're not going to be out CONCACAF'd in this tournament. I think that's probably a lesson we've learned. They have the quality to win the game. They are better than Guatemala. I'm not saying anything controversial with that. I mean, shout out to Rubio Rubin and what they did against Canada, but this is an American team that is better throughout. If they play smart soccer, they don't make mistakes, particularly at the back. They should be okay. Don't find yourself chasing the game, and you should be okay. Again, I don't want to dismiss Guatemala, and that was such a big moment for them against Canada, but they actually are due for the letdown, right? Emotionally, it's going to be really tough for them in this game. I could easily see this being a 3-0 U.S. victory. A relatively comfortable 3-0 U.S. victory in this game. I don't know that that's going to happen, but my sense is that that if I was going to place a bet on this game, it'd be something like that.
I'm curious, Nate, why are you scared to say this, that the USA will win the game? Is it the confidence in the team, or you're scared that they'll advance? I'm curious to know what your fear, where's the basis of your fear coming from?
Yeah, we're all afraid a little bit, just in life. The world is scary. No, but I imagine that Nate's with me. Like it always feels weird to be confident because you set yourself up for disappointment if the team does not meet that confidence with a result. And this team is not as much as they've grown through this tournament. I think that is fair. It's still not like we're the finished product and like, oh look, they're humming along, they're firing all cylinders. It took penalty kicks to beat Costa Rica. I mean, Costa Rica missing their best player or their best goal scorer, at least in that match, and still they pushed the United States to the brink, and it required Matt Freese being an incredible shot stopper with the penalty kick shootout to win that game. So I understand Nate. Nate and I understand. We understand each other. I'm trying to be rational on top of just like that wave of confidence around the team that I do feel. But I think that this team is that much better than Guatemala. And while Canada could be argued to be better than Guatemala, Canada picked up a red card and was playing a half down a man and just never seemed to understand the tenor of that game. And I think the United States is better in that situation. Now, here's a good question from Bernardo. What changes would you make to the starting lineup, if any? Rob, do you have any thoughts on starting lineup for the U.S. men tonight?
I have actually enjoyed how there's been a consistency of the picks, kind of just like letting players kind of ride it out, so to speak. I mean, Ajamang, Pochettino's shown a lot of confidence in him, and talking it through, I'm not sure what changes I would make from the quarterfinal unless there was some players that maybe picked up a knock or fatigued or anything like that. But the selection that he made for the quarterfinal round seemed very sound, and I really didn't have anything to nitpick from what he did there. Maybe Arfston, maybe, he was, big ups, big downs with him. Do we like his excitement level? Is he a liability? It's that's kind of where my curiosities kind of lies, the Arfston pick. And then trying to think about who might be a nice combo in the middle of the
Let me address that real quick. Let me address that. So when we were talking about this lineup ahead of the Costa Rica game, when we saw the lineup, a lot of us, including myself, looked at that midfield and went, "Oh, what is going on there exactly? Why is he playing a double pivot with Malik Tillman? You had Sebastian Berhalter, and we thought Berhalter was going to be in the midfield, that this was going to be basically a three-man midfield of guys who kind of all have the same basic profile. Or, if Berhalter is more of an attacking number 10, number 8 kind of option, they can play both sides of the ball. We know Adams is a 6. We know De La Torre he can advance the ball, but is he the guy to pick a lock, that kind of stuff. Obviously, they pushed Berhalter wide, and Malik Tillman stayed central, and it worked for the most part on the attacking end of the field. It worked. Again, they gave up 2 goals because of the Max Arfston experience, but there was, for the most part, good stuff there. If he played this exact same lineup, I think I'd be okay with that. On the evidence that we got from the quarterfinal against Costa Rica, if I didn't know that Sebastian Berhalter was going to be playing in a half space position out wide or in that flank, then maybe I would be like, oh, no, this is not what I want to see. But because of the way this played against Costa Rica, I could see it working again against Guatemala. I will point out that in terms of injury, the only thing I've heard is that Johnny Cardoso is dealing with something. Obviously, he did not play against Costa Rica, and I wouldn't expect him to be inserted in this lineup now and shake up the chemistry that is there. McGlynn started a number of games in the group stage, did not start this game, came on the 83rd minute as a substitute. Could I see McGlynn over Berhalter this time around? Sure, that is possible. I think for the most part, though, outside of that question at left back, and if you want me to say what I'm comfortable with, it might be John Tolkien, who's a better defender, although he doesn't bring supreme confidence either. But I think Pochettino doesn't care about that. He wants Arfston to get up the field. He wants that danger. He wants the wildness of that attacking element, and he will take what comes defensively and hopefully and ask other guys to help cover for what Arfston is leaving in behind. And again, it didn't work against Costa Rica twice, but it kind of did work in the sense that Arfston got a goal and was involved in the other one.
I did notice at least one comment when we were reviewing Sunday's quarterfinals. There was a comment or two about the Tyler Adams performance, and if you or I had any concern over the way he performed on Sunday. I mean, I thought it was a pretty typical Tyler Adams performance. You know, he got around a lot, broke up some stuff, not like amazing passing. I mean, do you see any dip there?
I didn't think he was great. I was a little underwhelmed with his performance. He is such a physical presence, though, with the ground he covers and the defensive work that he does, that I think you kind of have to take the good with the bad. If he was just a little bit better of a passer, Tyler Adams would be damn near world class. But he lacks something. Now, he made it work within the context of that game. And obviously against Guatemala, you expect the United States to have the lion's share of possession again. So as long as you're not making terrible mistakes in your own defensive half, you should be okay. So I don't think he was great, Rob, but I don't think that you can justify taking him out of the lineup.
The one other final note about what changes might we make, you mentioned Sebastian Berhalter. Maybe his head has been turned, maybe not focused on this game because of all the rumors to Bayern Munich that have been swirling around.
Sebastian Berhalter to Bayern Munich?
Yeah, I saw that online yesterday. Some rumors of Bayern Munich sniffing around Sebastian Berhalter, which, internet, you need clicks, right?
I had not heard that. What a surprise and interesting thing that would be. All right.
That would really be something. That would really be something, wouldn't it? And just a quick, like off the cuff sort of question before we move on from the Gold Cup semifinal tonight. Have you enjoyed this iteration of the team?
Yeah, I have. I think that there are a couple of players who make it, right? Diego Luna is one of them, right? Diego Luna is a player that you just can't help but root for. I still have my issues with Malik Tillman in particular, and I talked to Jeff Carlisle of ESPN on the radio on Monday about this. It seems as though Malik Tillman is very affected by what happens on the field. Like his head dropped after the penalty kick miss.
Oh yeah,
now,
definitely.
He got back in it, but I just worry about that potential part of it. Like it's very hard for him to forget it and move on. He is an emotional guy. So I worry about it, but that also makes me want to root for him, right? That paternal thing comes out. Now you're like, oh, come on, Malik, you can do it. You got this. Come on, buddy, get back in there. I think Chris Richards is an incredibly likable player. Maybe one of the most likable players we've had in a very long time. And I like a lot of this group in terms of, again, they're strivers, Rob, right? The effort. We talked so long about how it didn't feel like the European-based guys were putting in the effort. These guys are working. They're putting in every bit of effort they can. Patrick Ageman can never be accused of not putting in a shift.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a touch or decision-making, sure, but effort, not a chance at all. So tonight, USA versus Guatemala, and then followed by Mexico, Honduras. Moving on to long ball number 2, Club World Cup check-in. CONCACAF out after Monterrey's 2-1 defeat last night to Dortmund, leaving MLS and the region here out of the competition. What do you think of that development? I mean, we saw other teams. I mean, kind of one half of the bracket is European, the other half is the rest of the world. I guess does the rest of the world fare anyway, the rest of the competition, or is it just going to be European based from here on out, you think?
No, I mean, it's we're guaranteed to have a non-European club in a semifinal, which I think if you had said that was going to happen before the tournament, people might have looked at you sideways. Like, what do you mean? No, we're going to have 4 UEFA teams in the semifinal. And that's not going to happen because Al Hilal pulled off the surprise of the tournament by taking down Manchester City. And we were talking before the show, Simone Inzaghi gets a little bit of revenge against Manchester City after that Champions League final loss a couple years ago with a team he's been managing for about 3 weeks, I guess. I don't know how much of this is on him. I do think that part's interesting in sort of the context of Major League Soccer and CONCACAF in general, if you're talking about Monterrey being bounced, that the only team outside of UEFA or CONMEBOL, because you could imagine, we thought we might get some CONMEBOL teams definitely in the round of 16, and the Brazilian sides performed well and all made it, right? You thought that was going to happen, but to have Al Hilal in the quarterfinal here with an opportunity to go to a semi, because I think they could beat Fluminense. If they can beat Manchester City, they can beat Fluminense. That would be a shock. And on one hand, it makes me sad because this is kind of, again, the Saudi Arabia sports washing campaign working.
Yeah.
And making them look good over here. On the other hand, there's always going to be like, okay, give me chaos, break up the big powers, show that there's something else possible outside of UEFA. And Al Hilal has done that. They and while I don't think it's fair because of the difference in the money that is spent, absolutely this kind of reflects back on CONCACAF and on Major League Soccer, which is in the same category, the same bucket of leagues as the Saudi Pro League, in that it is not a major power. It is outside of the major regions, and people are thinking about it as a developing league that needs to figure out what it wants to be and how to get better. And Al Hilal is proving that the Saudi approach, which really is just throwing money at the problem, at least gets you some glory here. Now, this is the thing, right? And when we come back to Miami and we're going to talk Toronto FC on this show and the money that they threw out of two players rather, that did not work for them, and why Major League Soccer continues to chase the big name signing at the expense of overall roster quality. You look at the team that Al Hilal ran out against Manchester City. You've got Alexander Mitrovic, who scored goals for fun in the championship, scored goals for Fulham. You have Milinkovic Savic in there, who has played at Lazio, who have played 300 times at Lazio. I mean, we're talking about quality players. Obviously, Ruben Neves is in their midfield. His resume at Wolves speaks to his experience, and Koulibaly at the back. I mean, they have. It's not all through the team, right? There are obviously Saudi players in this group, but they have more.
They have like 8 DPs.
They have, yeah, exactly. That's exactly the difference. And I think that is interesting in the context of what they have done in this tournament and reaching this quarterfinal. And we'll see what they do against Fluminense. And obviously, I think if you are just looking for something different than the Champions League, you're glad to see other teams make the quarterfinal. Chelsea gets Palmeiras, which will be interesting. And then, of course, but then we'll also get a little bit of the glitz and glamour when PSG takes on Bayern Munich and Real Madrid gets Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, we'll get to the games of the weekend ahead, but it is interesting to look at the bracket and just to hang on at Man City for a moment longer. After they won the previous round, Pep was saying we'll probably pay the price in December for this run, but we're here to win this and we're here for a long summer. No one's interested in vacation. And then they lost the very next game, which they probably will be just burned out to all smithereens by December, regardless of missing out on a couple games. But funny or notable quotes from Pep Guardiola there. Fab 4 on the way. Long ball number 3, our 4th of July festive Fab 4. Before we get into that, I should tease our final segment of the day. We're going to talk about the Italian duo leaving Toronto FC, and we want some feedback from you guys in the chat. Your club's worst signing. Where do those rank as far as money thrown into the burning dumpster, such as Insigne and Bernadeschi seem to have been. Long ball number 3, Fab 4 for the 4th of July. This is the segment where we pick out the top 4 games of the weekend ahead, and a long weekend ahead with the 4th of July. And notable, the 4th pick is also the chat, so lots of listener and viewer interaction here. We need your game of the weekend and your club's worst signing. Fab 4, first pick of the segment. Jason, where are you going to go with the top pick?
Well, I got to pick a game on Independence Day, on the 4th of July. And if you go and you look at the schedule in American soccer on the 4th of July, it's not super deep with top-level games. So Major League Soccer's got 3 games on the schedule. They're all dogs in my mind. There's something, I guess, slightly intriguing about the Galaxy in Vancouver just because of the difference in the seasons that they're having. But I'm going to go down a level, and I'm going to go to the USL Championship. I'm wearing a shirt for a former USL Championship side in St. Louis Football Club, who does not exist.
Don't put that shade on. Don't put that shade on living teams.
Well, I'm not trying to end anybody's existence. I'm just pointing out that I'm wearing a shirt for a team that used to play in the USL Championship and doesn't anymore.
Fair.
So on the 4th of July in El Paso, Texas, El Paso Locomotive against San Antonio FC. I don't know if it's much of a rivalry. It's definitely 2 Texas teams. We have learned on this show how big Texas is. 7.5 hours it'll take you to drive from San Antonio to El Paso if you want to see this game as a San Antonio FC fan. And I imagine some people probably will. Like, some people probably will take that trip and make that trek on the 4th of July. I don't know if El Paso's got a fireworks display planned. Rob, maybe that's part of your evening. Carlos Llamosa, former U.S. international, is in charge there for San Antonio. I think it's his first year on the job, and San Antonio's having a decent season so far. They're in 4th right now on 21 points. They are 2 points back of El Paso, who's in 2nd place in the Western Conference under Wilmer Cabrera. Do you remember Wilmer Cabrera? Do you know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, managed in Houston, has been around for a very long, managed in Montreal, actually, for a little while as well. Was part of Rio Grande Valley before they folded. So, yeah, shout out to a couple of guys with some deep history in the game, coaching at the 2nd division level. Shout out to Texas. Shout out to El Paso. Shout out to 4th of July.
Yeah, shout out to 4th of July. That had some David Guetta shout out to his family sort of a vibe going there. But yeah, chat, your pick, where you headed for a game this weekend? I'm curious to know, with the 4th of July and it's a 3-day weekend, where, are you going to make time for a game this weekend? Throw your suggestions in the chat. But my pick of the weekend, a bit of a different scale of game. You went lower league American, and I'm going to go glitz and glamour here on the 5th of July. PSG versus Bayern in the all-European side of the Club World Cup bracket. Outside of Bayern and fatigue, I don't know what's going to stop this PSG team. They didn't really get tested for obvious reasons against Inter Miami, but Bayern, they obviously are a stacked team in their own right. I do believe PSG beat Bayern in the Champions League going into this. So maybe Harry Kane, he gets the grip between his teeth in these kind of situations for revenge, and he's definitely hungry for silverware. So that should be, if they don't get scorched off of the surface there at high noon on July the 5th, it could be an entertaining game.
PSG rarely beats Bayern Munich in Champions League play. I mean, I'm looking at the history. You mentioned Bayern Munich won in the league phase back in November, 1-0 in Munich. They beat the PSG in 2023 a couple of different times, including once in Paris. Bayern Munich in 2021. Paris Saint-Germain in 2021 did get a win in Bayern, in Munich. So it's not a thing that it happens very often that PSG can beat Bayern Munich. And although, again, this is a little bit of a different scenario, it's not the Champions League, it's not in one of their home buildings, should be a very interesting game. And I think, obviously, both of them will want to win. As you said, whether or not PSG has been, quite tested. I mean, they weren't perfect through the group stage. Let's point that out. This is really the big test for them. Try to make a semifinal by beating Bayern Munich.
I'm trying to think of the tropes that have like been consistent in footy for a long time that are no longer true. Like Messi never win the World Cup, that just went away. Obviously, PSG never being able to win the Champions League, that's gone away. I'm like, what are those like kind of cliches that are remaining? I think we should do that. Delve into that for the future. I'm curious though, but just like the things that were true for a long time that
Harry Kane,
no longer.
Harry Kane can't get a trophy. Harry Kane has a trophy. That's changed too.
There's an asterisk on that though, because he left and joined Bayern Munich in the 1 year they didn't win, and then the year that he did get his trophy, Tottenham got a trophy in the same year. So I feel like
that's
that kind of balances.
That's not an asterisk.
I mean, he got one, but if he would have stayed, he would have won the Europa League. So
okay, so now you're comparing the Bundesliga title to the Europa League. Is that what you're doing?
As far as the square footage that it occupies in his trophy case, it's close.
All right. He's scoring goals. He's. I don't know, Rob. It's a hard sell.
I think this is as good a time as any for the third pick to bring in producer Jenny for her pick. Break up this duopoly of Jason
let's stop talking about Tottenham. That's what I'm going with. That's why I'm going to come in here, because I'm sick of
Jenny's
hearing about
a Gunners fan, and she's an Arsenal fan. Okay.
Just to clear all that up, yeah. So I am going back into the lower leagues with Jason, and I am picking the Tampa Bay Rowdies against FC Naples. That is a Jägermeister Cup game on the 4th of July. And I'm picking it because FC Naples has kind of made a lot of waves in terms of their attendance and the kind of enthusiasm around that expansion club down in League One. They're having an all right season, especially for an expansion club. They're sitting in 4th place right now. Tampa Bay not living up to their usual standards. But it's the Jägermeister Cup. You don't know what you're going to expect. And like I said, at Naples, they're hosting this game. A lot of momentum around that team. And you got that nice local rivalry, Naples and Tampa Bay, awfully close to each other. You should get a lot of good traveling Rowdy fans in there.
Yeah.
Should be a fun one on Friday night.
That's the Rascal Derby, right? Is that what they call that? Everybody's puttering around on their Rascals.
They're little old man scooters, yes. Retirement. If you thought MLS was retirement derby.
Yeah, there you go.
El Scutero.
It's the Snowbird Derby in Florida. Let's go. Yes. Thank you, Jenny. That's a good
Anytime.
one. All right.
Yeah, I'm glad that was another 4th of July fixture as well to keep on the theme.
Yeah, a couple of games in the chat that we should reference. Nelson is saying he's going to San Diego Dynamo. I don't know if he's selling that as his Fab Four. I mean, San Diego obviously having an incredible season. I mean, the San Diego right now, Rob, might be your favorite to win the Supporter Shield, which that's shocking. That's a shocking turn of events. Now, Philadelphia is having a great year. Cincinnati's very, very good. It could be a 3-4 team race, but that San Diego team has continued to surprise everybody. They just beat FC Dallas. Now they get a chance to beat the Dynamo at home, or will they beat the Dynamo at home? And then I think we've got Sean, who's saying he's driving hard early to get to a 10:30 a.m. kickoff. Detroit City versus King Hammer FC in the USLW playoffs in Pittsburgh. First of all,
Sean, wow.
That is an effort. 10:30 a.m. kickoff in Pittsburgh. What is going on there? I guess that's field availability. I don't know what that is. And I now know that there is a club called King's Hammer FC, and I'm all in on that. That is brilliant. Let's go.
Their quality. They actually used to be in the division that Oakland County FC played in, and they're Cincinnati. They're either like on the border, Cincinnati or Kentucky, right there. And they're I think there was a club called Kings, and then like a Hammer FC, and they combined, and they're a pretty powerful club at that level. And Sean Spence, shout out to him. Great soccer writer covering DCFC on the regs. But wow, 10:30, and that's like probably like a 4 or 5 hour drive. So kudos to the dedication there. We got a shout for Columbus and Cincy.
No. Zach is explaining that there are two Kings Hammer FCs. And they are in Columbus and Cincinnati. Like you were saying, one is in Cincinnati. He's saying the other one is in Columbus. So that's Zach giving us some some American soccer info. Why there are two Kings Hammer FCs, I don't know. Is that like the Dutch Lions thing? Isn't Dutch Lions like a franchised club deal, and then there's different places? All right. Anyway, let's move on.
We're getting lost, but Sean did answer your question. The game starts so early is because they are getting in 2 matches over the weekend, and they're trying to manage recovery. So notable there. And going back to my tropes that in soccer that are no longer true was the MLS and the United States winning in Mexico was shout out in there. And then also Europa League is bigger to Tottenham than it is to the winning the league for Bayern. So if you
that's fair. No, that's fair. And I'm sure that if you told Harry Kane, I can guarantee you'll win a trophy if you stay for 2 more seasons, maybe he would have done that because of his love of Spurs. But the man's playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, and Spurs is not that. I'm sure Jenny loves hearing that. Spurs is not that. So shout out to Harry Kane.
All right, that is the Fab 4 of the weekend. Thank you, everyone, for chirping in there with your contributions. El Paso, San Antonio, PSG, Bayern, Naples, Rowdies, and I think we got to give it to DCFC and King's Hammer for the 4th pick. Our final segment of the day, what is your worst signing for your club? So get in your suggestions for that for our final segment of the week. Who is the worst? I mean, Insigne, and I don't know, to a lesser extent, Bernadeschi, but we'll get to that in a little bit. If you're watching this channel and you haven't hit subscribe yet, what you waiting on? Do so now. Join the American soccer conversation here on Morning Kick-Around. We're accelerating. We've gone past 2,700 on our way to 3,000 subscribers. And the more people subscribe, the more fun this all gets. Take your support to another level. $3.99 a month gets you an MK Ultra membership. You get early access to videos, priority commenting, bonus content as well, and probably the diamond in the rough, the Morning Kick-Around Discord server. We got some great conversations going on over there. Dare I say, robust conversations one more time. We got local, MLS, national, and just soccer in general. Some great conversation threads on the MK Ultra Discord server. And you can also find us on the internet at Morning Kick-Around on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, at morningkickaround@gmail.com. And one last way to support this program, coffee.com/morningkickaround. We've got a $3,000 goal to coordinate an on-site gathering / creative conglomeration here. What did you call it? Morning Kickapalooza, I think is the way you described it on Monday. But
maybe Ultrapalooza? I don't remember what I called it. Maybe it was Kickapalooza. Kickapalooza might be better than whatever I said. So we'll go with that for now, Ron. All
right. We're going to get a sip of our coffee, come right back and discuss American soccer being weird here on Morning Kick-Around. American soccer is weird here on Morning Kick-Around. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Not many places in this world do teams come back for a 3rd try with the same name, and it might just happen to the Cosmos. Reports from Hudson River Blue came out, I think, yesterday afternoon saying the Cosmos may come back as a USL 2 team in 2026.
Yeah, here's the headline over at Hudson River Blue. Our friend Michael Batista. Are the Cosmos back? Sources tell Hudson River Blue a new iteration of the Cosmos will debut in USL League One in 2026 and will play at historic Hinchcliffe Stadium in Paterson, New Jersey. So, New York Cosmos, Paterson, New Jersey. Now, this would not be the first time, obviously, that a team called the New York Cosmos played in New Jersey. That's happened before. Happened in the original days of Pelé and Canalia and Beckenbauer. Although at one point, they dropped the New York from the name and they were just Cosmos. I don't even think they were the Cosmos. I think they were just Cosmos, which is almost like Madonna or Sting or Bono. Like it was like, what is going on here?
They're that big, Jason. They're that big.
I guess the question I have here, Rob, and by the way, here's a little bit of detail from a USL.com item on the new ownership. This is from the press release about there being a Northern Jersey group, North Jersey Pro Soccer, set to launch a League One team in Patterson. The Cosmos stuff is reported by Michael Batista at Hudson River Blue and is not official yet. So what we've got here is just some details that I wanted to point to because I think they tie things together. So if you're looking for evidence that Michael's reporting is solid, here's part of it. Eric Stover, co-founder and CEO, is an experienced and award-winning executive with more than 25 years in the sports and entertainment industry. Stover's connections to area soccer include his time as managing director of the New York Red Bulls, during which he oversaw the construction and operation of Red Bull Arena, and 5 years as COO of the New York Cosmos, the previous iteration of the New York Cosmos, Rob. The Rocco Camiso New York Cosmos. That may actually have been the end of the One World Sela Sports era. But I said on Blue Sky, at first I was like, okay, what are we doing here?
For good reason.
And I guess I would love to know from our viewers and people in the chat. Do you think this is a good idea? Now I'm not a New York, New Jersey man. Like I don't live in the New York metropolitan area. I'm watching this happen from afar. And I've been around long enough though to have watched the Cosmos be trotted out as this zombie identity that is famous in American soccer because of Pele, because of Canaglia, because of Beckenbauer, because of Carlos Alberto, because of the 75,000 that saw them play in the old Meadowlands Stadium. I'm very cynical about this. I don't know why we need to keep turning back to the past, especially a past that is dripping with failure. You know, you can obviously celebrate the best moments of the Cosmos era, and if you haven't seen Once in a Lifetime, go back and watch it. It's a great documentary on that era. It's got principal people who were involved in that era of American soccer, and it was wild. But let's not forget that league collapsed. The Cosmos collapsed. They ceased to exist in 1984, just about like everybody else. And then reviving them actually came out of the guy who Pepe Pinton. Man, I'm going into the memory banks here. Pepe Pinton, this guy who was like a hanger-on with the original Cosmos back in the 70s and early 80s, somehow ended up holding the naming rights, holding the identity, the trademark on the name, and didn't want to do anything with it until somebody came to him and said, hey, let's redo this. They launched what was essentially a merchandise company. They were doing T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that. They got Eric Cantona to be the sporting director of the club, which really wasn't a club. They put him on a throne, took all these pictures. He's all these photos. They're very pretty. Nothing ever came of it. Finally, somebody steps in, One World Sports, Sela Sports, to use it to their own purposes. There were conversations with Major League Soccer that eventually went nowhere. There was even a plan during that era, Rob, to build a stadium island that was going to look like this. This was the concept for the Cosmos Stadium in Belmont, New York. Obviously, it didn't happen. I think they ended up deciding to build a hockey rink there. I don't know what they did. They lost the bid. There was a bid. They lost the bid. This would have been the inside of the Cosmos venue. Man, that's
a good rendering. That's one I haven't seen before, and that's fun.
There will be people that point out, as Nate does, the Sounders works.
Yeah.
It does work. The Sounders also, though, had a consistent identity or were around. I don't know, remember when they relaunched the Sounders? 2000, maybe a little before that, as an A-League side.
I believe
there was momentum behind the Sounders when they entered Major League Soccer, right? And, man, I don't know. I just wonder if you're trying to connect to the community in northern New Jersey, why not make a name that connects to northern New Jersey? Like, why does it have to be this thing like we're aiming big and it's going to be the Cosmos brand? Riverside Grove, good idea. Cosmos brand is iconic, and a Pro Rail USL could catch fire. To me, that's a cynical approach to marketing this team. And we just got done last week, talking to Michael Hitchcock about how to connect a team to a community. And I know he's doing it on a much lower level, and they're not paying the players at that level, and there's lots of different short season. But man, I don't know. We talked to Detroit City. They didn't go with what was the old NASL, the Express. They didn't go Detroit Express. I don't know if they could have gotten their hands on that identity. They didn't go like Detroit Express, Rob. They said we're going to create something new, and we're going to connect to Detroit now.
Yeah, and you're talking about connecting. What are you trying to connect to with this? While I do like just throwing the Cosmos out into the mix is intriguing because there's very few soccer properties that draw any kind of emotional reaction or connection at all. So in that right, people will have some sort of reaction, good, bad, or otherwise. But at the same time, the people that have a previous connection with that name are definitely, I wouldn't call in the younger demographic of people.
No. It's this weird removed nostalgia. You're using a nostalgic identity for people who cannot connect with it directly. And if they can connect with the Cosmos name, then they will attach it to the Rocco Commisso One World Sila Sports version, which, okay, they tried something, right? And they went out and they got a couple of interesting names. And Giovanni Savarese started his career as a coach with the New York Cosmos. But I remember going to a NASL championship game in New York at wherever the St. John Soccer Stadium is. Now I can't remember the name of the St. John Soccer Stadium. Somebody in the chat will maybe remember that.
Do you think they call it the John?
Belson Stadium. It's called Belson Stadium. Belson Stadium holds 2,168 people, Rob. This was when NASL was kind of collapsing around itself, and they had to throw together this championship game between the New York Cosmos and Indy 11 at Belson Stadium in St. John's in Queens, and it was kind of a joke. Like it was. I mean, I didn't want to be mean about it at the time, and I don't want to be mean about it now. But it was not what the Cosmos name should be attached to. If you're gonna do that, right? You're diminishing the name. A USL League One team called the Cosmos. You're diminishing the name. If you have any respect for what Pele and Canalia and Beckenbauer and that group did, but even beyond that, it's just a mismatch to me. It's just this thing that you can't square what that Cosmos was with this moment. And who are you appealing to? If you want to sell jackets and jerseys to English people who think the Cosmos sound cool because they had Pele and Beckenbauer, all right, fine. That's one way to go, I guess. And maybe if your bottom line is going to be dicey, that's a way to bring in a different revenue stream. I suppose you could make that argument. I find this disingenuous on some level.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this a long-term play, or is it just like kind of get that flash heat right out of the gate? I mean, because North Jersey Pro, doesn't exactly have a ring on it for the name of a team. Obviously, that could just be a placeholder. But I mean, it's evoking this reaction. We're talking about it. Would we be talking about, a press conference on July 10th for North Jersey Pro if there wasn't this rumor of the Cosmos name being attached to it? And they'll always kind of like have that in the back of your mind. If it does in fact play out where they join as a USL 1 team, I guess there would always be a little bit of extra attention on them because there's that name there, but it does seem a little bit maybe short-sighted just to get that cheap heat, I guess is how I've heard you describe it.
Yeah, it is cheap heat. Now, if they do the work behind the cheap heat that they get from the Cosmos name, okay, good for them. Yeah, I mean, good for them. I mean, and maybe I need to reserve judgment in that regard, right? Maybe I just need to say, okay, fine. Maybe they know what they're doing. Maybe they think they need this initial boost of the recognition of the Cosmos name. And by the way, I actually don't know the mechanism for this. I imagine because Eric Stover's involved, he's got some connection, and Rocco is either selling the branding or letting him use it. I don't know how that works. Rocco Commisso, last time I heard, still owns all that stuff and is still obviously heavily involved in the NASL lawsuit against Major League Soccer and against U.S. Soccer Federation. So that part is interesting to me too, but that's more of a That's more of a legalese element than just a part about, again, connecting to the community, because we've seen too many teams aim for the stars, do this big branding, big thing, try to be national, try to be international, when the way to make it work, especially when you're playing third division soccer in America, is to connect with the people who might show up to buy a ticket and watch your team play.
I'm sure you could spin it as like we're the Phoenix and we're attaining to rise to the stars. If you can connect their entrance and formation into USL 1 and co-opt it with the Pro Rel integration, you could say we're starting at the bottom, back to the glory days of Pele.
Yeah, but that's the other thing about this, though. Like, if this was the same club being reborn, I guess. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I know that's semantics, right? Well, that's the problem we have in American soccer, is we end up in this place of semantics. Like, the Earthquakes now were not the Earthquakes then. The Sounders now were not the Sounders then. Even though there were people always trying to keep that name alive in the Seattle market, it's not the same club legally or officially. It's sort of like that thing with the Rangers, right? Rangers collapses under the financial weight of their mistakes, and then they're sent down the ladder in Scottish football, and they got to come back up. But they're reborn. It's a totally different entity. But people think of it as the same club. It's got continuity because it never really went away. I just don't see continuity here to think this is the same Cosmos. It's just branding. It's just a brand. It doesn't connect at all. You can't say we named this team the Cosmos. Remember when Pele played for us? No, I'm not buying that. You're not the same thing, Rob.
Not the same thing. Cheap heat. Well, we should say, it's definitely throw it in the bucket of American soccer being weird. Cosmo's back for a third time. We shall see. If you're watching this and haven't hit the subscribe button, do so now. Join the American soccer conversation here on Morning Kick Around. Join the growing numbers, working our way towards 3,000 subscribers. If you want to take your support to the next level, $3.99 a month gets you a membership here on Morning Kick Around's YouTube channel, and you get early access to videos, priority commenting during the live shows, and access to the Discord server. We're having conversations just like this. And there was some of the MK Ultras digging into the trademark for the Cosmos and doing a little bit of background, seeing does Rocco Camiso still have in any sort of say on the Cosmos name. So
can we do this too? Can we ask the MK Ultras in the Discord, and maybe if you're in the comments on this video, when we put this up as a segment or on the live, if you watch it back, give us a better name for a Northern New Jersey League One team than the Cosmos, the New Jersey Cosmos, the New York Cosmos by way of New Jersey, whatever. Give us a better identity for that team.
In addition to becoming an MK Ultra with the Morning Kick Around YouTube membership, you can also support us on coffee.com/Morning Kick Around. And there we have a $3,000 goal for on-site travel provisions. I'm really having a hard time with how to describe an on-site location as an idea.
It's a live show fund. It's a fun to do a live show out in the world. So support us if you want us to go out in the world and do a live show.
Yeah, and that would be so much fun. And then, lest we forget, Morning Kick Around is also a podcast. So search up Morning Kick Around on your favorite podcast platform if that's the way you'd like to consume the show. We're going to come back with an MK Have Your Say version of Big Question, bouncing off the big MLS news of some Toronto FC players being released this week. Put your club's worst ever signings into the chat. So we will catch our breath, have a sip of coffee, and come right back with today's big question here on Morning Kick Around. Big question here on the 2nd of July, 2025. My name's Robert. He's Jason. In light of Bernadeschi and Insigne, two very high-priced and high-profile signings for Toronto FC. They've since been released from or bought out of their contracts this week. We can dip into that a little bit, but I wanted to give MK to have their say of the worst signings in your club history. We've got a couple already lining up in the mix. I don't know what that word is. What is Mike saying there on the screen?
He's saying Risenboli, goalkeeper, Philadelphia Union, saying it's their worst signing is what Mike is. He was getting ahead of the curve. There he is with Risenboli. I remember the Risenboli era, but I don't remember exactly how much they spent on him or what the whole story of that was, but he definitely did not work out in Philadelphia. He did not work out. So, this is that thing, and a goalkeeper too. Like just don't whiff on a goalkeeper. There's really no excuse for that, Rob. You goalkeepers are around. You can get a decent one. And I also don't think that I don't remember if Risenboli was a DP, but certainly we have had DP goalkeepers in Major League Soccer. Never a great idea, even if they perform relatively well. But this story with Insigne and Bernadeschi terminating their contracts with Toronto and moving on, Toronto FC might get slightly worse in the short term because at least they're high talent players, even if they didn't bring it to the level they needed to make those contracts worth it. The thing I would say about Toronto and those signings is that Toronto is the extreme example alongside, say, I guess Inter Miami. And I guess you could put maybe the Galaxy in the same category of clubs who chase the high of getting international recognition for the signings that they make in the DP realm, right?
Expensive heat.
It's not cheap heat. It is rich heat. It's Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It is obviously Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets. It is in this case, and Toronto did make it work when they went and made some high-profile signings in a previous era. Of course, two of those signings that kind of led them to titles were American players who were returning to the United States after stints abroad and did not really rank among, these weren't Champions League caliber players in Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore. And obviously Sebastian Giovinco was a guy who had been with Champions League caliber clubs, but never been able to get on the field very much.
Mm-hmm.
So when they did that, they found the right recipe. But obviously the upshot here is that neither Insigne nor Bernadeschi, when you pay them that much money and you don't fill out the rest of the team, that's not enough, right? It's not just sign a couple of big name DPs. You've got to have the supporting cast. Those TFC teams under Greg Vanney back when they were winning titles were noted for their depth. By MLS standards, very good depth. Obviously, worldwide standards, it might be different. And what this got me thinking about, and a thing that I want to write up for my newsletter, Jason Davis Soccer Eagle, go find it, is MLS chasing that cheap heat, but it's not cheap, it's expensive. And I equated it to this because somebody said on Blue Sky, Parker Smith, a guy I follow on Blue Sky, said something like, this is part of the problem, right? That MLS, that its teams chase this big name thing. And then what is that issue is that you see this and go, well, the league's moving forward. This is progress for MLS because they gave Lorenzo Insigne $15 million a year. But that doesn't do enough down the roster. I mean, it doesn't do anything down the roster. And you're spending so much of your budget. And I don't mean in like MLS rule budget. I mean, whatever you were willing to spend on your soccer team, if you're MLSE, the owners of Toronto FC. Now, so much of it, in the case of Insigne and Bernadeschi, over $21 million is going to two players. And even if you're willing to spend almost $40 million as they were, that's more than half. That's 60% of your money is going to two players. And you don't have the quality throughout the team to make those two players effective when they are on the field. Maybe their attitude stunk. Maybe there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. Maybe they didn't really like each other. Maybe Bernadeschi was vaping in the locker room. Whatever it was that didn't make it work, part of it was the inability to spend across their roster. And so MLS, the way I said it is, MLS loves the smell of its own farts. These are. That's what this is. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, it's a funny way to put it, but I see your point there, and that's very valid. And yeah, I think Toronto got this wrong on just so many levels. Like, obviously, they spent big on two players. Those two players didn't necessarily, at least Insigne, like, I'm no a body language expert, but Insigne had some of the worst player body language I've ever seen from any player, really, when I've watched Toronto this year. Pretty terrible. But and to your point, is their depth? They didn't really have any around it. When you think of teams that had successful DPs like the early Atlantas, their role players were huge for them. It wasn't just the big money guys that contributed to that team being great. And I think, so we're going to go to the comments of some of the MK Ultras, and the commenters' suggestions for their clubs were suggestions. And I think the first one I'm going to bring up here is to the point of spending big on one or two players and almost forgetting about everyone else around and kind of capsizing kind of the rest of the project. Is Xherdan Shaqiri to the Chicago Fire, I think, is the perfect example of getting a player that could probably put you over the edge. Like if you had a solid team and then you added him, you could go from like a good to a really, really good team. But if you're the dregs of a league that's an emerging league, and you add a player who really, to be honest, was a bit part player at Liverpool before that anyway, and instead of add a bit part player to a team who didn't have any sort of a core at all, was just a bad idea in general.
No, absolutely. The Xherdan Shaqiri one stands out. It did feel, I mean, a lot of this, of course, is analysis after the fact, like in retrospect. Oh, at the time, I don't know that anybody was.
That seemed like a terrible idea from the start to me.
That's fair, right? And it felt, again, so there is the allegation here from Riverside Grove. MLS has always emphasized marketing over product. It's where so much of the disdain for MLS comes from. That I think in sort of a simple way of saying it, that's a fair statement that MLS has prioritized marketing. Now, I'm sure that people at MLS would argue, well, marketing is critical to getting the money in to help us improve the product, right? Like the idea of let's just make good soccer and the people will show up is a tougher sell in America than it might be in a lot of places, because in America, you're not just trying to capture soccer fans who need to be convinced their team is good and worth watching. You're trying to convince people who aren't really soccer fans or are only casual fans who only know a few names that they should come out. And if you put a big name on the field, that's when they show up. And then you backfill the quality after you do that. I mean, that's the MLS approach. And it's not always effective. And again, Rob, it gets down to what your priority is. Mm-hmm. Your priority to play the best possible soccer. If you're 100% convinced you're going to fill up your stadium every week, kind of no matter what, you could focus on that without worrying about anything else. We don't need a marquee name. We just need the best player who fits. Now, if he happens to be a marquee name, great. If not, whatever, we move on. But again, in this league, in this country, they are hardwired from 1996 to try to chase the thing that gets them more attention, because they're not only competing worldwide for respect, they're competing within their own country for sports dollars that go to other sports that we have here.
Another suggestion in the chat. I think this one's a little harsh, but one of our cherished MK Ultras here, Kai Kamara at Minnesota United. Funnily enough, this is the one move we did a video on. Can Jason name all of Kai Kamara's MLS teams? And Minnesota United, the only one out of, I think, the 13 teams on Kai Kamara's MLS resume that he couldn't get. I mean, that was 2020. That was COVID bubble stuff.
It is COVID bubble stuff. But you know, it helps Ken's argument that I couldn't remember that Kai Kamara was at Minnesota United. No. But Kai Kamara, look, if you want to call him a bad signing, that's fair. He's not on the same level as Xherdan Shaqiri because of the money, or as both Lefty and Riverside Grove has said, Steven Gerrard at LA Galaxy, rather. That was a bad one. That did not work out. Another Toronto one. I don't think you could claim Bernadeschi and Insigne trump this, but Jermaine Defoe at TFC.
Credit to Jermaine Defoe. He got out quick. He didn't waste anyone's time, years on a contract, just burning up money. I mean, he was like, this isn't for me. I'm out.
And the story there, by the way, is that one of the reasons Jermaine Defoe signed with TFC is because Drake called him or called his mom or something like that.
Yeah, and he was convinced, and he totally got duped by Drake. He was like, yeah, I thought I was going to be hanging out with Drake, and I literally, once I signed, I never saw him or heard from him
again. Saw him. Drake is that guy. He's not going to post. He's not going to post. I think Nery Castillo is another Chicago Fire signing that did not work out. I think Nery Castillo was off of like a good Gold Cup or something, or maybe even a couple goals in a World Cup for Mexico, and he got signed to a big contract. And obviously part of that is Chicago has a big Mexican-American community. They had already been successful with Cuauhtemoc Blanco, and that Nery Castillo was in that same vibe, and he wasn't good enough. He wasn't at that level. Producer Jenny has shouted out Olivier Giroux in the private chat. Does Giroux measure up for LA?
Yeah.
I mean, Gareth Bale would have been if he doesn't score the winning goal in an MLS Cup final. Giroux didn't do that. Didn't cost as much as Bale did, though, I don't believe.
He did score, I think, a Leagues Cup final goal, if I recall. He scored LAFC versus Columbus. In one of the iterations, one of the Intercupper Cups he scored in. But yeah, not a great stay for Olivier Giroud. But to be fair, he was kind of a little bit set up for not to be successful with the way that they play.
I agree.
He was never necessarily a run and gun transition guy, like even in his pomp. And so he wasn't really set up for success there. Was there any other ones out there?
I agree with that. But still, I mean, and again, I don't know how much they paid him, but he was a DP, so he's taking up that very important and precious DP spot. Let's see. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, Marcelo Gallardo at DC United. How good or bad was that one? I'm sure DC's got a list that I'm just missing on a couple of names. I'm trying to think of maybe the worst signing in Red Bull history. I know we're just doing MLS here, but
the new striker they got, the new old man striker could be on this list here shortly.
How about Luis Angel Landin for the Houston Dynamo? Go back and look that one up. Go back and look up Luis Angel Landin in Houston. Let's see. Going through the mental. It would take me a while to kind of work through it. I know I've got some in there. Does Freddie Ljungberg count, or did he do okay that he didn't measure up poorly?
I thought he did okay. I've never really considered him a bust. I mean, he didn't like set the world light or anything like that, but I wouldn't have considered him like an all-time fail. I know it was a much lower profile than Shaqiri, but when I was covering the Fire, they signed a goalie from South America to big money in comparison, Jorge Bava.
Oh wow, I do not remember that name.
He was there. He was the goalie the Schweinsteiger year, and then once Schweinsteiger and some of the Dax McCarty's signed, he faded away because he was just a kind of a clown car on 2 feet, and they spent money at an international spot for a goalie who couldn't catch, couldn't kick, couldn't do a lot of things.
I'm going to shout out Lefty here. He's bringing up the Red Bulls. Claudio Reyna, who was already a broken down player by the time he arrived in New York Jersey to be a Red Bull. And that's a forgettable period. And absolutely that's a bad signing. Although, Lefty, I think if we're talking Red Bulls, and a name that escaped me initially, Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez has to be the worst signing the Red Bulls have ever made in terms of the dollars, what they got for him. You know, he was only there to maybe live in New York for a bit. He really wasn't there to commit to the soccer. He had like a thing in the playoffs against the Galaxy where he threw a ball at Landon Donovan, got suspended for like 4 games for the next season. It was a disaster for Rafa Marquez. Did not want to be there.
This one's interesting. Chicharito, Riverside Grove FC. Chicharito to LA. I mean, I know he had like a 2-week span where he kind of like had like a mini redemption arc there, but it was mostly bad, right? He was pretty run down. He had some mental things going on, I think, emotional things going on, and he may be going through a divorce or something, which is not to say that he wasn't a bad signing. Of course, that you can't like take that into account. Well, you give him a pass. No. I don't think he was that bad. I mean, it was bad, but he wasn't that bad. No, not that bad. Well, there's been plenty to sift through, plenty of bad signings in MLS history. My last Liverpool shout for worst signing, Ricky Lambert. I that one crushed me because I knew that we replaced Luis Suarez with Ricky Lambert, and I knew that wasn't. I knew we were unserious about winning things at that point, and it's not always the money; it's what you're signaling with that signing that sometimes is the painful part. But to kind of wrap it up, Bernardeschi and Insigne leaving Toronto, and then piggybacking on that, the fine Frenchman gone from LAFC, Olivier Giroud. So big 3 name contracts off the books for Major League Soccer. And I would say you earlier on at the top, you said that the departure of the Italians would lead to short term them getting worse, but probably long term better. In Detroit sports terms, I would say Miguel Cabrera, as soon as he left his like 10-year, $20 million a year contract, they suddenly became relevant again. So hopefully for TFC fans that might.
But nobody is upset. Nobody hated Miggy Carrera, all right? Nobody was like mad at him. It was
no. I'm not saying it's a bad signing, but it was no coincidence that finally once his contract that went on 5 years too long, once that was off the books, they all of a sudden were in playoff contention again.
That's a story, right? That's something that Major League Soccer really hasn't fallen into yet, where and really it's not a soccer thing in general, although I guess the way that Chelsea is structuring their contracts now, it kind of brings it into play that you're kind of you've got some dead money, you've got contracts that are just holding you down, albatross around the club, because
soccer's way more aware of end of deal fall off. Like so many teams are requisite to go beyond 2 years once the player's like 29 years old or something like that. Other than Chelsea, there's no decades long deals in soccer.
No, not yet. We'll see if that ever happens.
Yeah, will Todd Bowley be the change maker of soccer? I mean, I know it turns some heads, but I don't know about in the right direction. But we shall see. But that should about do us for today's big question. MK had their say. Thank you so much for everyone getting their suggestions in. A couple last minute ones. FC Dallas Danielson.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. The Danielson, Kevin Molino, not super big money, not a DP guy, but yeah, he was supposed to like add something attacking wise to the crew, and then he just couldn't stay healthy. I feel bad about that for Kevin Molino.
And have you ever been called Big J before? Someone called you. It said "nice shirt, Big J." Have you ever been called that?
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, I can't say it's never happened, but yeah, shout out to whoever shouted out my shirt. St. Louis Football Club. I own a lot of things with the names and logos of dead American soccer teams on it. Unfortunately, it's not even like I tried. It wasn't like, hey, let me curate a collection of dead American soccer stuff. It's just when you collect for long enough, teams die because you could actually see St. Louis is over my shoulder right there with the scarf right there. Right? Oh, and that's a I guess technically Nashville moved up but changed their logo and their look. Anyway, continue.
Have you shipped out any of your collection yet? I know that's part of one of our threads on the Morning Kick Around Discord server, which you can gain access to with a MK Ultra membership. Have you shipped any of that out?
I have not, and I will happily do that. I have an inventory that is 90% complete, I would say, up over there on the Discord. So if you do want, really just tell me, hey, I want that, Jason, and I will ship it out to you. Give me your address and it will be on its way. I promise.
The generosity of Mr. Davis knows no bounds, it seems. But you can join in the American soccer conversation here on Morning Kick Round. You can click the button to subscribe, and $3.99 become a member. With that, you become an MK Ultra. You get priority commenting on these live videos. You get early access to videos, bonus content, and access to the Discord server, which is hotting up with each and every day with each and every new member. And then kofi.com/morningkickround. There we have a fundraising goal for a live show. So 3K the goal. And thanks to Ken and some other generous viewers, we are on our way to that. You can find us on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Thank you to everyone who has followed on socials and sent us an email. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the subscribers and members thus far. Thank you for getting in on the ground level of this thing that we're building here. So long weekend ahead. I hope everyone has a safe and enjoyable time. It's that time of the year where we get to play, was that a gunshot or a firework? Shrug shoulders emoji, but I hope everyone is safe. I was kind of, after spending years in Humboldt Park in Chicago, they go all out, and the safety precautions, not necessarily
be safe. Top of mind. Everybody be safe out there. We want everybody coming back with 10 fingers when we talk again on Monday.
Yep. All right. We'll be back Monday. And until then, everybody be safe. Enjoy the 4th. Enjoy your soccer.